3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, my name is Jim Conlan and welcome to this episode of our entertainment show. As you know, in part 3 of our entertainment show each week, we look at new sort of features in terms of, let's say, entertainment culture, in terms of cult classic sort of TV series, movies that have left their mark in the industry. And back in 3 years ago, we started a little sort of project that dwelled into a storm in terms of when we looked at the Mortal Kombat sort of franchise throughout the decades, throughout the ages, back in the early sort of 1990s until its present day. We had season 1 went off to fantastic success online, and a documentary on air and online, and over online it massed over 250,000 views alone in the first week.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm delighted to be joined by our guests this evening as we kick off season 2. We will have each individual episodes of each of our guests appearing by themselves, and then we'll have the documentary meshed together for season 2. So for season 2, our special guest for this episode in particular, we're delighted to go back to 1997, back to Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And this is our first feature looking at the Shinnok character. And if many people are looking and talking about the Shinnok character, he's come into very much fruition in the last few years, again, in terms of the Mortal Kombat fighting games, in the last 7 or 8 years in terms of that. And he was played in his only appearance in the Mortal Kombat movie franchise back in 1997 by the German actor Reiner Schone. And Reiner, if I can tell you it's 1997, does it almost feel like a lifetime ago now?
No, not really. On the other hand, I'm writing my biography right now, and I did not really get to this episode, but I do think about that, of course, because it was a cool time in Thailand.
And tell me, Reiner, from what you remember, how did this opportunity come about for you in terms of this character? And you mentioned going abroad to shoot this. And in terms of, was it the simple, normal introductions, or were they looking for someone quite different?
Well, it's the regular way, you know, since I used to live in Hollywood in LA. And for about 20 years, and my agent called me and said, "You got a part." I don't think I did an audition. No, probably they just handed the part to me. And then I met Brian Thompson, whom I became friends with, playing my son, and we did it. We hit it off.
And
I remember one thing. Maybe it's part of your questions, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The costumes: black pants, black boots, black gloves, black everything black. And I got this black hood on top of it. And we had in this studio, in this makeshift studio in Thailand, we had about 50 degrees Celsius, centigrade. And everybody was just running around naked, barely dressed. And I was really hot. And when I walked down that aisle, flames were shooting out. So, and it was probably like 60 degrees. And everybody was saying, "Reiner, how can you stand that? How can you be alive?" And I said, I have a motto, which I created then. If you can't fight it, if you can't change it, don't fight it. I mean, I couldn't do anything about it. So I just had to go with the flow. I had a little ventilator, a little fan, a little electric fan with a battery, and I just when the director said action, I went. Then I went on camera. No, it was hard, but it was worth the while because it was a great movie.
Yeah, and Reiner, in terms of your character, what did the sort of producers and directors sort of give you the sort of essence of what your character was like, in terms of, whereas you just said he was a bad guy, a bad dude?
No, it wasn't just bad. He was the elder god. So I had to I had to raise some, what's the English word for würde, dignity in a way, and grandness. And that's what I did. I mean, being 6'5" helps, and the costume helped too.
Yeah, and obviously, you were the sort of anti-god to Raiden, which was the sort of good
Mm.
god in terms of played by James Remar in terms of that.
You know,
And
but it's still a two-dimensional character. Don't forget, it's like a cartoonish kind of show, and you don't have to dig very deep and go psychologically into something. You just say your lines and play it with dignity and grandness,
and
and
Reiner,
walk tall. And walk tall.
What do you remember about these sets? Because they were trying to create this sort of image in terms of that you were fighting in a different planet, a different sort of world and sort of stuff. How much effort and design went to creating these sort of sets?
Well, I just remember that I was very impressed by the stunt people and by the actors who were actually fighting, and Robin Shue and Brian Thompson. They had a couple of fights, and Brian was green and blue and was bruised because Robin Shue, being a real martial arts fighter, he didn't stop before he hit the body. He hit him. These guys hit hard. These movie actors in the Far East, obviously, they hit each other and they don't fake. And Brian was always saying, Robin, it's only a friggin' movie, except he didn't really say friggin', he said the other word, the other F word. And he said, if it's a movie, don't hit me. And Robin couldn't do anything else. He couldn't do it any different. And I felt sorry for Brian because he was really, he suffered a lot. But it looked good.
And Reiner, in terms of Mortal Kombat, obviously it was the sequel, and the original movie in 1995 was a huge success. Did the cast feel coming back, the guys that had been in the original movie in terms of Mortal Kombat, did they almost feel a sense of a pressure on them in trying to top the original?
No, no, not really. Honestly, I didn't really. Did I see? Yeah, I saw the first one, and I don't think there was any influence, any pressure. What you were saying? No, not really. We just did our thing.
Mm. And in terms of a new actor coming into a movie sequel where some of the stars have been established from the first movie, what was that sort of like in essence? Were the cast warm and humbling to you in terms of the
Oh,
actors?
absolutely. Yeah. No, they were really warm. It was just a movie like any other movie that was great. And working is always fun. And coming into a group of people who have been together for a while, there was no difference. No negative, no pressure, no nothing.
And were you
And
aware when you took on the Mortal Kombat project did you do a bit of research into the background of what Mortal Kombat was about, or do you think to yourself, well, this is just a
I've seen so
computer
many
game?
martial arts movies, from Hong Kong. We call them the Hong Kong Western or Hong Kong Eastern. And I adapted quite, when before I went to America, I did a lot of sync work, dubbing work. And I was actually looping quite a few of these martial arts movies. So I was really aware of what was going on and familiar with the fighting.
Okay. And in terms of being associated to Mortal Kombat, as the years gone on, have you sort of has the a sort of a notice in terms of a fan base when people look up your work, when they look up what you've done, and they've seen that you're sort of attached to Mortal Kombat? Has it brought a certain amount of curiosity in terms of questions towards you?
Not exactly. No, no. People, you know, actually, I got a lot of fans being the German voice of Optimus Prime.
Okay.
And this is not, well, in a way, it is metal martial arts.
Okay.
You're familiar with the Transformers movie?
Yes, I am. Yes, yes, yes.
Movies. We just did the sixth or seventh. I'm not sure. And Optimus Prime is sort of like the hero. And there was much more impact from that movie than from Mortal Kombat, of course, because, I mean, Optimus Prime
Yeah.
is the man with a voice.
Yeah. And Reiner, do you think in terms of when you shot Mortal Kombat, back in Thailand in 1997. And obviously there's 2 movies coming out in quick succession. It's almost like a flashback to 20 years. Again, we had the first Mortal Kombat movie 2 years ago. The second one is currently filming, and it's just obviously it's been held up at the moment for the actors start to strike. But does it almost feel like history started repeating itself, coming full circle again?
Always. That happens always. Yeah.
And does it always
But
bring
I remember when you saying it was not a great success. The first week we hit the #1 mark in America with Mortal Kombat Annihilation. For 1 week, we were #1 when we came out. I remember that. It felt good.
Yeah, I suppose some of the reaction for the sequel was, and I suppose the criticism that people gave the movie was the killing of Johnny Cage in the very first scene. And people were sort of very friendly to that sort of character. And obviously Johnny Cage is probably, in terms of the computer games, in terms of Mortal Kombat, he's seen as an important role. It was a brave decision by the directors and the producers to sort of kill him off in the very opening scene. But it caused an awful lot of backlash among the real diehard sort of fans, in terms of who liked his wit and his banter and his humour, that he wasn't, that all of a sudden he's dead, even before the movie had started.
Was that a question?
Yes, I was just thinking, when you look back on it, Reiner, do you think that the producers and writers probably made a bit of a mistake killing him off that soon?
I don't have a specific opinion about that, I have to say.
Okay.
I was not really aware of that. Didn't make any difference, actually. It was just a script, and we fulfilled its obligation, our obligations.
And what did you think in terms of when you saw the movie back for the very first time yourself? Did you go, was there a screening? Was there a cast start to screening where you went out in person, or did it actually take a while before you saw it?
Yeah. And we thought it was great. And then, of course, there was an opening night, and I saw that too in Hollywood. I think it was Mann's Chinese Theater, or just across. I don't remember anywhere where it opened up. But, to see all that on a big screen with the music. And speaking of the music, I wrote and produced a whole album with with music for the movie. And, in the end, when the credits roll, but they were rather, they liked more I didn't get one thing placed, but it was a cool album. And I remember that was one song, since you mentioned Jax, where I played piano, and it was sort of like a groovy acid jazz kind of thing. We called it Acid Jax.
Okay.
And my then wife, a great singer, Francesca Capasso, sang that. And they wanted Rammstein and bands like that. So, but it was a great experience. I mean, this is not exactly my type of music. I'm more a blues and rock and roll musician and songwriter. But for the purpose for the movie, I went to a bunch of co-producers. And for the first time, I really worked with loops and computers and stuff like that, and not real musicians. And it was a great experience, no doubt, even though I didn't get it in the movie.
Okay. And Reiner, you mentioned there about costumes. I mean, you mentioned about your own costume. And in terms of other sort of people's costumes, were you sort of amazed by the sort of the fighters in terms of the outfits, in terms of the designs, when you got to see other people's costumes on set?
Well, I envy them because they were barely dressed. Most of them were half naked, and in that kind of heat, I was the one who had to suffer, but I looked great, with my black hood and everything. I looked impressive.
And Reiner, lastly, before I let you go, is there any one funny story in particular, maybe as a experience hanging out with Brian Thompson or someone else on the cast, or some blooper backstage from your time on Mortal Kombat Conquest that still makes you laugh, that still makes you have fond memories or smile to this present day?
Well, there was one thing when I came. I started my love for sarongs, you know, these long skirts.
Yeah.
And our stunt supervisor was saying, because they were running around, a few of them, Brian Thompson too, it takes a real man to wear a skirt. And I had my black nails and I had an earring and everything and pretty long hair. And then I still have these sarongs. And I still have to wear. And we went to my, unfortunate ex-wife, Francesca, and I went to Bangkok, and she had a suit made for herself, tailored, and I had 3 sarongs made, you know. And then I asked this Indian tailor, "Have you ever made a sarong?" "Yes, sir, for women." And he was very adamant about, why would a man want a skirt, you know, a sarong? And nobody wears sarongs anymore, no men at least. And I was wearing them in the Caribbean when I was shooting there, and people were were really giggling because they never saw a man wearing a long skirt. So that's part of my memories of Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Okay, so you found an item of clothing that sort of still has a presence in your life even to this day.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Reiner Schone, thanks for joining us on the airways for this special feature of our Mortal Kombat documentary. You played the character Shinnok in Mortal Kombat Annihilation in 1997. Some of your best scenes in the movie are obviously with Brian Thompson, your sort of interaction. You're the only one so far to play the character Shinnok on screen in terms of any representation of Mortal Kombat throughout the decades. And no doubt, obviously, that character, you've been the first. You're the first one to put on the T-shirt, and who knows, you might be the only one. But for the moment, Reiner Schone, thanks for joining us today, all the way from Germany. Stay safe. Take care.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, bye, Jim.
Thank you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.